Like any fuzzer, OrCa can uncover bugs, but one of the things we're really excited about with OrCa is that it's actually able to help users better understand the code base. So in particular, when OrCa is fuzzing, it's executing these millions of test cases. And when it's executing them, it's finding out things about the code base, right? So for example, it might figure out what types of users can call a given function, or what types of requirements are there in order for a function to be successfully executed. And one of the things that we realize is actually really useful about a fuzzer is that it finds out this information and it can give that information to the user so that the user better understands the protocol. So with OrCa, we've actually built out a system by which OrCa reports interesting information that it found during fuzzer directly to the user. When OrCa is executing these millions of test cases, it's actually uncovering a ton of useful and interesting information about a protocol. So some examples of this might be what types of users can successfully execute a given function. So actually a ton of the types of bugs that show up in smart contract protocols are access control issues. And OrCa, while it might not know exactly who should be able to call a given function, it can tell you who is able to call a given function and expose that information to a user, and the user can use that to understand what the protocol is actually checking. Furthermore, it's able to expose other things as well, right? So for example, it might show you the types of requirements that are necessary in order to call a given function. So for instance, it might execute a function 1,000,000 times and only be able to execute it successfully twice. And from those two examples, you might be able to learn a ton about what actual requirements are there in order to successfully execute this function. One of the things we're really excited about actually is in addition to our AuditHub interface that makes it easy to interact with our tools, we've also recently built out support for a VS Code plugin where you can see the results of OrCa displayed directly in your code editor. So this means as you're auditing the code or reviewing the code in whatever way you want to, you can hover over different functions and different lines in the code base and actually see information that OrCa's exposed about that particular line of code. So this can make it really easy in the course of auditing to directly see the information that OrCa has exposed during fuzzing. One of the things we're really excited about here is no, you don't have to write a V specification. So for most other fuzzers on the market, in order to get use out of them, you need to be able to write these specifications. And like those, OrCa can certainly test actually more complicated specifications than most of those other fuzzers can. But in addition to that, OrCa exposes this information purely by executing millions and millions of test cases. So OrCa can actually express or expose a ton of interesting information to the auditor without the auditor ever needing to write an actual specification. When I've been using OrCa, one of the things that I've found that's extremely useful about it is when I'm actually first starting on a code base. So I set up OrCa to run and it executes these millions of test cases, well, often actually within only a couple of seconds. And then I can use that information to help me quickly understand certain aspects of the protocol that might have taken me much longer to understand otherwise. So for example, I've already talked a number of times about how OrCa can easily expose information about access control on given functions. But in addition to that, it can show me very particular examples of how you can reach certain lines of code in the code base. And this can give you a detailed understanding of how different components in the actual protocol interact with one another. So it can give you a sense of what's required at different points in the code and how you can reach those particular code points. My personal favorite is to use the VS Code plugin. I find it's really useful to be able to kind of quickly look at the code, run it, get some information from OrCa, and see that displayed directly within the code base. I find that that's a really natural and intuitive way to get this information from OrCa and have it exposed in the way that I already audit anyway, because I already audit through VS Code, right? And so when I'm able to see this information expressed in this way, it makes it really easy and natural to kind of incorporate into my natural auditing process.